Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris here, and I'm bringing you my thoughts on Gladiator 2. Just saw it with my buddy Brandon. Went to a 7:15 showing. Going into this, I have to say, I thought making a sequel, just the general idea of making a sequel to the original Gladiator was really stupid. I didn't want that to happen because how could that be done well, right? Was it going to be like we've got zombie Maximus coming back? What's going to be the deal here? I gotta say, Ridley Scott did it. It is not as good as the original movie. I don't think that was ever even on the table as a real possibility. But it is a very worthy sequel to the story and kind of a nice way to bring Maximus's efforts kind of full circle here. So I'll just tell you up front, this is going to be spoiler free. I'm not going to really get into anything in terms of, I think, some plot twists that a lot of people will see coming on the horizon. You know, if you sort of have read anything about this or seen the trailers and all of that. But I think that there's more of a resolution to this movie in a lot of ways than what we got with the original film, which is kind of interesting. That one obviously did have resolution when it comes to Maximus and his family and everything that happened there, but this is even kind of more large scale. And so I'll just stop there from a spoiler perspective and not say anything else. But what I do want to talk about is the film itself again and how it made me feel. You know, what did I feel when I was watching Gladiator 2? And quite honestly, the best way I can sort of phrase this would be, it was almost like going back to see an old friend and just sort of hanging out in a bar and reminiscing about old times. But also, you know, kind of broaching new territory and venturing into new things. So one of the criticisms I've seen about this movie is that a lot of people say that it kind of beat for beat matches the original film. And I see some of that, but not actually completely. I think it does enough of its own thing to work well. I will say, if there are any, I don't know, faults that I would identify with this, I do think that as things progress, it's a little bit kind of making an effort to grasp at straws and add in potentially some commentary to what currently our political climate, right, that exists in maybe not just in the US, but worldwide, right? Obviously, sort of venturing beyond that. Maybe that's there, maybe not. I don't think it's there as much as some people might try to identify it and say that it is, but I could see how people might sort of tease that out of it. But, you know, the recreation of ancient Rome that we get here, this is set 16 years after the death of Marcus Aurelius in the original movie. Of course, we've got Ridley Scott coming back to direct. We've got a really great cast here, and I'm just sort of reminding myself of the actors and actresses. We've got Connie Nielsen, who returns as Lucilla, and she's awesome, and she actually looks almost the same as she did in the original movie, which I think came out in 2000, I believe, so 24 years ago. We've got a variety of other actors here. Paul Mescal, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Pedro Pascal, and actually Derek Jacobi. Yeah, so some returning figures from the original movie. The showstopper here, and I think I've seen this with some other critics' thoughts on the movie, has to be Denzel Washington. He is just menacing and awesome and just really kind of dominates every scene that he's in. There's one scene in particular that takes place with the Senate that I just thought was so expertly handled, and I think illustrated what his character was really striving for and what his character was really trying to accomplish, which you can sort of see it coming, I think, a little bit in the movie, but it's just so perfectly done, and he just sort of dives in headfirst into sort of making that scene come to life. It was just perfect. Just his character was really great. There are a number of different villains, and one thing I will say too is if you compare Joaquin Phoenix's character in the original Gladiator to the twin brother emperors that we have in this movie, they're almost comically over the top in a certain sense, but also it doesn't feel unrealistic, right? If you study history and know about sort of the egomaniacs and man-children leaders that have taken over countries and empires and that sort of thing. But there are some moments that, you know, it's a little bit too cartoonish, but it mostly does work, right? There are, and I'll say this, there's no shortage of villains that you're wanting to see get their dues at some point in the movie. So that definitely stands out as sort of an up and down a little bit with the emperors themselves. But everybody else is great. Again, Denzel Washington specifically just is awesome in the movie. And he'll probably, I would assume it would be best supporting actor is what the role would be that he's nominated for. But I'll be shocked if he's not up for consideration for that as what he does here. I mean, he's just really great in it. But the plot follows someone who is a warrior in a country that is being conquered by Rome. And the whole sort of political scene here is that Rome is just grasping and reaching as far as it can to take over nations, and there's really no end in sight for it. And a lot of the population is becoming weary of that. So are the senators. So are a variety of other people involved in the storyline. And so, you know, someone survives one of the attacks and then is brought back to Rome to be a gladiator. But of course, there are very clear ties to the original film as that sort of plays out, and that's all I'll kind of say about that. And I don't really think any of this is really a secret necessarily, but I do think that they aren't 100% clear about what one of the central character, I guess it would be, what his sort of backstory is in the trailers. But you can watch that and probably pick up on it. But it really does nicely tie into the original movie. And I wondered too how they were going to handle Maximus and sort of his legacy, and they do it perfectly here. There are some flashback moments where they actually intersplice footage from the original movie into this, but just how people talk about Maximus, there are some scenes where you see some of his relics, his armor and his sword and things like that. It's perfectly sort of peppered in here. And really, at the end of the day, this to me is just a great illustration of when you've got great actors, really well written and interesting and engaging characters, and sort of a tried and true plot, right? I mean, this is sword and sandal stuff, but just sort of a Shakespearean struggle for power plot. If you put all that in a pot together and put some good direction behind it, which is of course what we get from Ridley Scott, then you get a good movie. So not going to stick a number score on it. It's not as good as the original movie, but I did think it was very good. I think it's a worthy successor. I think it's one you should see in a theater because it's got kind of that, I don't know, that stately old school movie making feel to it. And I just really enjoyed it a lot. So those are my kind of quick and dirty thoughts on Gladiator 2. If you've seen it, let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thanks so much for watching.